Good morning. Welcome to Contemporary Issues Sunday School class. We are so pleased to have you here today. There's more chairs on the side if anybody comes in. But welcome today. We are so pleased to have Ron Puning with us today to talk about why religion became obsolete. A book review with a very relevant topic for us. Find out a little more about this topic that we revisit once in a while.
Trying to make it obsolete.
And they're trying to make it obsolete in China. Good story in the Wall Street Journal today, why China still can't tolerate Christians and other believers. And talks about the more they try to suppress religion in China, the more it grows underground. So very good story. Before we start, our Zoomers, we welcome you, and please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen when you're not talking. We are recording this for future playback on YouTube, and we would love your discussion today, but as always, remember, please don't dominate too much, but please give your opinions and your questions as usual. Other announcements, Frank has a potluck coming up on December 19th.
Hey, please announce.
Yeah, of course, Frank. Yeah.
Potato party.
And potato party, and we have a Christmas party on December 9th for the class. We have 40 to 50 people there, so hope you'll come join us here at the church. 44 replied already. Good. That's great. And good sermon again today. When you come to a fork in the road, pick up the fork because you don't want to leave kitchen utensils sitting in the road. When you come to that fork in the road, pick it up. But good thoughts today. Okay, any other announcements? Has everybody been watching the Ken Burns documentary on revolution?
Yeah,
How many have seen that? Really good.
wonderful.
Yes. Amazing that we ever won and became a country.
Without the French, we couldn't have done it.
Without the French, we could not have done it, Eric said, yes, and without George Washington's amazing perseverance and skill and strategy.
Good field commander though.
Not a good field commander.
Lost more
I thought his
battles than he
strategies were pretty good, but we overcame all those
Good leaders,
obstacles.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, with that, we want to welcome Ron Puning, our resident engineer, Renaissance man, reader of all kinds of books.
Musician.
Good presenter, musician, just came from doing trombone in the 9 o'clock service, multi-talented.
That's why he's a Renaissance.
They had no music ahead of time,
Mark forgot to send him music.
and he just was winging it this morning. Thank you, Ron. Tell us about today's topic.
That's a Renaissance.
Okay, all right, this is a very relevant topic, and in a way, it's a disappointing topic because it's not what most of us want to hear, religion sliding down in American society. But we can at least start with a couple of irreverent cartoons. And there's one of my favorite. No, he's not. He's not the joke. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Here we go.
To share that.
Okay. I'm a big fan of The Far Side.
Yes.
The poor guys showed up at the pearly gates and it says there on the sign, "We've moved to 4223 Maple Avenue." And then one guy up in a cloud, "I wish I'd brought a magazine." Next one, my next favorite cartoon is Calvin and Hobbes. Does anybody remember Calvin and Hobbes? But Calvin's sitting there at his desk. Remember those desks you had at our era? You lifted them up. "Please don't let the teacher call on me. Don't make me go to the board in my ripped pants. Anyone did me. Just let her call on somebody else. Please don't embarrass me in front of the whole class." "Calvin, would you like to do the next problem at the board?" So much for my ever joining the clergy. Alrighty, okay, several great books. The one we're mostly basing today's lesson on is one by Christian Smith. And he is very much a theologian employed at the University of Notre Dame in one of the departments there. I don't know if he's active there now, but he was there for many years. And he put together this very comprehensive study trying to ask the question, why, what are the reasons for such a strong decline in religion in particularly United States over the last 20 years. So I'll pass that one around. I'll pass around enough books to drop on your foot and hurt yourself. Also, the book that came out 5 years ago, Religion's Sudden Decline, What's Causing It and What Comes Next. We'll pass that one around. Another book that's just come out by Ryan Berg, The Nuns, Where They Came From and Where They Are Going. There's another good one. And then there's a book called The Nonverts, and that's the opposite of a convert. And a nonvert is somebody that was raised in the church, but left and went elsewhere. So they're calling that group the nonverts, and that group is quite huge and growing. Picking on Mormonism a little bit, the book by Kay Birmingham, An American Fraud, One Lawyer's Case Against Mormonism. She mentions in her book visiting the Denver Temple over here and participating in some of the ceremonies. But she wrote a very hard-hitting book that looks at how she looked at Mormonism carefully and decided, I can't buy into this and I can't take it anymore, and left. And it's one of the best books and the more relevance on Mormonism.
Send it this way, Ron.
Send it that way. Okay.
Picking up on this.
Also a book that sort of parallels in a little bit of a way Mark's sermon series from not too many months ago, where he talked about people trying to find themselves in religion, trying to get a new grounding. He definitely, Mark says he gets a lot of people coming to his office saying, I'm having doubts and I'm having trouble finding myself and finding my religion. And here's a pretty good book on this. The author writes it mostly towards coming out of an evangelical background, a Pentecostal background. So that's another one well worth reading. He does put in there steps of he finds of coming back, as he calls it. All righty, next slide. So again, there's one group called the Nuns. That's not nuns that hit you with a ruler. They're in Catholic school. But it's he says the nuns consist of really three different groups: the pure atheist, who do not believe in God; the agnostics, who are on the fence, saying sometimes I think he's there, other times I don't think she's there. And then there's a large group that kind of das macht nichts in German, does not matter. I don't care, nothing in particular. So we have those three together and we get a group called the Nuns. Next one. Again, the author of Leaving Church and Finding God notes on, and you'll see it on the back cover of the book. He says, over 3,000 USA believers per day walk away from the church. And the reasons are many. There's no singular reason, but we'll try to look deeper this morning into what's causing it. So some of the reasons are biblical doubts, people that have been hurt by church authorities. Some feel hopeless to get God's approval. They feel like the bar's been put so high. They feel like I can't live. I'm just not that good. And then some get disgusted by the institutions that seems to have missed Jesus' core teachings. And he says many of these church refugees still long to know Jesus, but are tired of playing religion. Often they leave church. He said often some of the people who leave the church have real inner integrity and spiritual intelligence, but can't go along with the program any longer. Next one. All right. Here's a slide that would probably get me thrown out of most churches, but it's true. The Bible fails the authenticity test badly. Does that mean the Bible's all wrong? No. It's a collection of writers over hundreds of years in different areas, particularly in the Middle East. But it will not stand up to critical evaluation in terms of how many of the, for example, how many of the Pauline epistles can be well defended in terms of who the author is. And the answer is at best half of them. Bart Ehrman is probably the most famous agnostic, has written, and this is the book, Jesus Interrupted, Revealing the Hidden Contradictions in the Bible. And interestingly enough, on Bart's background, he started as a Bible student and he dug deep, but he asked too many questions, he dug too deep, and he found that there were phenomenal amounts of uncertainties, questionable authorships, forgeries, etc. And he said, you just can't put your hand on the Bible and say, the Bible's my beacon of truth. In a way, it's like a surveyor going off of a buoy out there in a bay, but the buoy has not been tethered. It's floating around. And that's the problem we have with the Bible. So we have to come to grips with that. And in a way, many modern theologians have said, well, in a way, even the people that thump on the Bible and say, I follow the Bible 100%, most critics look at it and say, no, you don't. You have to pull the Bible up and critically think and cherry pick the pieces and the parts and the verses that you want. You can't just blindly say, this is it. It's the perfect document. So I'll pass this book around, and it's well worth reading. There's a great course that for those of you that have ordered from the teaching company on the Bible. Okay, so there's a controversial slide. All right, the generations. My generation. I think that was a song by The Who. Yeah. Hope I die before I get old. That was one of them. They wrote that before they were 30. You know, so, but up there on the board, and then the slide shows the general names for the generations. And most of us in this room, I think, are either baby boomers, and they even divide us in the early and late, or the silent or the greatest generation, which is now getting to be a fairly small piece. But if we look at the four largest groups, they're all roughly at 20, 21, 22%. They're about equal in size, although the age spans are not equal. Those are roughly 15-year age spans. Next one. All right, so here's religious affiliation by generation and as the timeline moves across. And we can see it stacks up exactly according to age. If you're older, you go on the higher curves and your religious affiliation is definitely stronger. Without fail, as they survey the younger and younger generations, we find the religious participation gets lower and lower. It's very consistent. And we also find with time, all the religious affiliation curves are going down, not up. And it's particularly accelerated in the last decade. So that's pretty critical information. Next slide.
This happened to the greatest since 2000.
Can we go back one?
That one.
Number 9. Yeah, there it is. What's happened to the greatest? They're dying off. Maybe they don't have enough data points. I don't know the data. I'll have to dig deeper into that. Next one. Okay. Here's the average age of religious service attendees. And in 1980, it was the average age, the median and the mean were people about 47, 48 years old. And now, 2020, it's even gotten different since then. It's up to 59 or even higher. So churches are aging. Okay, in terms of regular attendance. Shrinking congregations. So between the years 2000 and 2020, the median number of attendees at worship services has dropped from 137 to 65. That's better than a 50% loss on the average. And we're seeing a lot of small churches in our neighborhoods, and particularly some of the older areas of town, closing their doors. Percentage of churches with attendance less than 100 went from 45% of them to 65%. So we're going to see a lot of church closings at an accelerated pace in the next 20 years. Most of the churches that are growing in size were already large, and there's a huge mismatch between small congregations and large properties. There's a picture of a rather magnificent church in Rochester, New York. You say, wow. And I've seen some other pictures of it, and you walk around it, and it looks great. It's not dilapidated, beautiful stone, great architecture, solid. It's not a rusty old dilapidated. And yet, on the real estate market in Rochester, it's selling for $625,000. You say, wow, talk about, yeah, incredible. Okay.
You wanna buy it?
Yeah.
Somebody will buy it and change it into something else.
Okay, back the way now. And now we look at the nuns, the non-verts, and the nuns can also be further divided into cradle nuns. That means a cradle nun is not somebody that was given a Catholic emblem when they were born, but no, it means they were raised in a family where there was never religion. They did not get taken to church. The family didn't talk about church. They didn't turn on the televangelists if they even had TVs. Those are the cradle nuns. And then the other group is the non-verts. That's the people who were raised in church. How many people in this classroom basically were in families where you were kind of expected to or forced to go to church or delightfully did so? It's almost everybody, yeah. But we look at the people that are leaving, the nuns, the people that say, I've left the church, I'm not going anymore. And we again see that trend where it's really getting heavy in the younger generations. And generally, the non-verts outnumber the cradle nuns by about 2 to 1 across all. That means there's twice as many people who were raised in church who are going away as those that never got exposed to it. So that tells us something's happening, that people are getting off on the exit ramp, shall we say. Next one. All right. The author, and there's a whole bevy of books that look into different reasons. The author concludes there are numerous reasons. There's no single cause, but he said here are some of the key factors. Unplanned obsolescence. You say, obsolescence doesn't mean it's not there anymore. For example, buggy whips have pretty much gone away, except in the Amish community and a few Western farms. But obsolete doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. I have not an 8-track player, but a DVD player. And I'm amazed that already, even in our generation, DVDs are going away. They're phasing out.
Still have VHS players.
Yeah. But obsolescence occurs when people feel something is no longer useful, or it's been superseded, replaced by something else in function, efficiency, value, or interest. It does not mean useless or fail. Something can be obsolete and be something really good,
Records are coming back.
but it means it's been superseded by alternatives that people prefer. They're choosing something else. Obsolete does not mean totally abandoned. You've still got your 8-track player right now.
Sure. They're an 8-track player.
But it just means it's been replaced. And a good example is Sunday morning
Yeah.
or Sunday afternoon there's definitely better attendance. That's a Chiefs football game, scan of the crowd. You can see the red. There's little doubt if you walk through Denver on Sunday, what's more important to the Denverites, the football game or church? Church does not outrank the football game, I'm afraid. All right, next one. Okay, and the culture is changing. Here's one of the key reasons why religion is suffering. The culture is changing fast. This is a plot of the percentage of Americans married between 1978 and 2018. Back in 78, not that long ago, in my viewpoint of it. My gosh, it was way up there, what, 75% of people, met people in the street, and they're married. And now, and this data is a little bit old, 2018, it's dropped below 50%. I think 1 out of 5 young men in their 20 to 30 age bracket is living with mom and dad. There's more men in the 20 to 30 age bracket unmarried than married. So the world is changing on us. Next one. Before we switch though, they said that the traditional sequence in the baby boomer generation was you got married, you went to church, you had kids, you send the kids to Sunday school. That was the pattern. Even in Leave It to Beaver, Hugh Beaumont, who was a Methodist minister on the side, they even mentioned going to Sunday school, getting Wally and the Beeve off the dress to go to Sunday school. But now we have more divorced individuals, single parents, children divorced, and they're all more likely to detach over time from joining congregations.
Both of my nephews got married outside the church. They had a friend who got his ordination online. And there are millions, I'm told, doing the same thing.
Yes.
Getting married by a friend who gets their ordination papers online.
I've heard that.
Don't even go to the church.
Okay, next slide. There's the delayed adulthood factor. I mentioned there's a young man on the couch living with his parents at age whatever he is, but this is showing up more and more. The younger generations are simply not forming young families, having children in their mid to late 20s or early 30s. The world is changing on us. They're probably thinking, when is he going to move out? Okay. And they said that the hip kids, not kids, young people, are using the 20s to establish a career, date around, enjoy being young and single in the city. But the time they settle down, the routine is established, and it doesn't include church. It's work, brunch, gym, date, drink, football, bye-bye weekly mass, And I remember a movie from 30 years ago with Demi Moore and Rob, what's his name? Lowe, yeah. And it was about young folks in Chicago there in the 70s here. Next one. All right, other factors. 9/11 had a notable impact on religion. A lot of people looked at 9/11 and said, where did these people get such intense hatred and determination? And said it came from their religion. Now, not Christianity, but it came from Islam. But a lot of people did say, hey, wait a second. I see some of that religious blindness and fervor translating into other religions and appearing in other religions, certainly in a lot of cults. And it certainly opened people's eyes to how religion, in this case, extreme Islamism, could lead people into doing horrific acts. Also, there is the political aspect of it. There are a lot of people that have said, particularly the association of the GOP with the Christian right has left many aghast and turned off. And we're seeing that a lot of people are saying, hey, wait a second. Where did Jesus tell us to, hate immigrants so much? Next one. All right. Here is some data on social interaction. Social detachment, we're gonna look at. And this is a plot of people engaged in social activity at least once a week. And the most common one is with relatives, and we can see that's gone down. We can see with socializing with friends and neighbors, that's gone down. And even going to the bar, getting drunk, is gone down. So socializing in person, face to face, is dropped off. And so people just aren't connecting.
All texting.
On the plus side, church has a theology component and also has a social component. And a lot of more modern pastors are saying, we need to put more emphasis on the social component. People are coming into this church not to show us how fervently they can worship, or not to argue over a 13-point creed or a 16-point creed. They come because they want to connect with people. They want to make friends. They want to be loved and cared for and connect. And many of the more upbeat pastors are saying, we need to put more emphasis on the socialization and connectivity and small groups and all these other things, and less on pure theology.
We're doing that now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next one. Okay. Secular humanism and religious pushback has had some effect, but it's not the key factor in the decline of religion. The culture has evolved such that religion doesn't integrate and fit with it like it as well as it used to. Younger Americans' expectation of religion clashes with their everyday experience. A lot of the young Americans are saying, I go to church and I get these lessons, but then I go out into the world, and it seems like what I got taught just kind of doesn't fit. And the people find that the religious model and the world they live in kind of don't fit together like they used to. Next one. And here's some examples. There was one book that talked about a small Arkansas town where in the 50s, kids approaching graduation and infatuated with each other would often quickly get married, have kids, and start a family. And that's changed. And the sexuality. Many young folks find the premarital sexual bans taught by the church are unrealistic in their life. And I can see where that's happened. What do you do when a couple's 20 years old, they meet each other, very attracted, but neither one of them has gotten engaged in what I will call a career or an income situation or housing where they can get married effectively. And how to deal with the sexuality is a real struggle. Badly needed educational assistance and affordability is lacking. A lot of people say God isn't providing. I knew one engineer I worked with in Oak Ridge, a very nice guy, Charlie. And Charlie said he left the Methodist church pastorship. He said, my wife and I and the two kids, we just weren't being provided for. He said, I wasn't able to even provide what he considered some of the basics for his wife and kids. And he went back into engineering instead of being a pastor. The denial of evolution and science won't stand up to critical reasoning. We're finding today science is advancing, finding a lot of things out about medicine and vaccinations, and there's an old school that just doesn't want to accept science, is rejecting it.
Yep.
And a lot of people with scientific training are saying, wait a second, my biology teacher told us this, and then the church lesson tells them something else, and they're finding that they're better off to stick with the science, that it fits with the facts.
Here that Mississippi.
Also, particularly those that have been in the more strong hostile or even faith healing churches, they tend to have altar calls and say, you know, if you're having a struggle with drug addiction or marital strife or raising your kids, just bring it to the altar and lay it before Jesus.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have found it doesn't usually work. I knew one lady in Tennessee that was so religiously fervent, and she was praying her heart out that her drug addicted daughter could break the habit. But the prayer was not doing it. What her daughter needed desperately was, her prayers were fine, but she needed to get in some kind of program. And that can be in this room, if you're attending the AA meetings that are here. And even most pastors will say, if a couple comes to them that's having marital strife, a lot of pastors, particularly in small churches, will say, I'm not equipped to deal with this. I need to defer this couple to a good counselor that could really help them. I can't just throw them an extra study Bible and expect it to solve their problems. So a lot of people have found that relying on faith to heal some of these things just doesn't work. Everything from preventing COVID to shutting off the measles. Also, one that's caused problems through the generations is the view that all the kids on the playground on the street are by default going to hell. That's what a lot of churches teaches. You look at that, you say, what, that cute little couple kids down on there on the teeter-totter? Is a loving God gonna send them to an eternal torment chamber? And a lot of people can't handle it. And saying, I'm gonna reject that faith teaching and go with what my heart tells me is right. Also, viewing everyone that doesn't embrace your faith as lost sure hurts your making social connections. There's a lot of people that really get involved in really serious denominations, and without realizing it, they're judging and they're rejecting and just not accepting people that aren't in their tribe. So that's the culture clash. There's a lot of it, and that's one of the key things that's happening. The culture says one thing, and some of the old church and theological precepts just don't fit with what people are having to live with in their day-to-day life. Next one. Damage from within. There's been, of course, a fair number, particularly in the late 90s and early 2000s, a lot of televangelists and religious leaders fell off the wagon, so to speak. And there's a DVD up here I have to push called Spotlight. It's in our library over here. It's a DVD, and it's a very excellent movie that details the Boston Globe investigation in 2002 that broke open the widespread issue of priest sexual abuse of minors. And they found it was incredibly more widespread than anyone had dared think. Maybe as high as 15% of the worldwide priesthood had people that were struggling with pedophile and other sexual aberrations. I highly recommend that DVD. Go ahead, Mason.
I seen Pool Boy about Jerry Falwell's son, Jerry Jr.,
Mm.
where it was voyeur, he was watching his wife with the pool boy as a voyeurism. And they would walk around the campus of Liberty University up in Virginia talking about, oh, look at him or look at her, that type of stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah,
it's not limited to Catholicism.
Oh, right.
But one of this,
right. And this sounds offensive, but many concluded religion either attracted the fools and frauds or produced them. I like to think neither of that, but yeah, there's something to it. Maybe it did attract a lot of those.
Ron,
people.
just a time check for you. It's 11:08 if you want to leave in.
Yeah,
You're not
definitely.
gonna be able to get through all 40 of your slides.
No, no. And we weren't planning on going that far. Okay, real quick, let's jump to the next one. That's just some more data, showing the reaction to the Christian right by generations. And the younger you get, the more turned off you are by combining religion with politics. Next one. Competition. There's a lot of good things to compete for your time on Sunday morning. Anything from soccer practice to Sunday morning football to you name it. There's a lot going on in our active and busy world, and a lot of people have found their way into other things to take care of their attention. A lot of people have found that a lot of the self-help books have helped people more than some of the religions. Or to quote that song by Billy Joel, I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. Does anybody remember that song? Okay, next one. Okay, confidence of the existence of God. That's down. Next one. Protestant church closing. Protestant church closings overtook plantings in the late 2020s. Yeah. And the problem is not limited to just Catholicism or standard Protestantism. There's the growth rate of the LDS church, and it's dropping off.
God's calling.
They're also yeah. Next one. Here's one of the a lady, Alicia Grenfell, who's written a couple books, How to Leave the Mormon Church. But she points out that by 2019, the Mormon millennial retention rate had fell to 46%. Traditionally, the Mormons have had a phenomenal rate of keeping people in the fold and the difficulty of leaving. But now with the millennial generation, that's what folks 30 to 44, a little over half of them are not are becoming non-verts and drifting away, even the LDS church. There's the 10 reasons that the Mormon millennials are leaving. We see a lot of the same things. Stop believing in LDS as the one true church, cannot reconcile their personal values with the church, resist the church's stress on conformity, etc. Next one. Jehovah's Witnesses are also finding they're not attracting many people with, and I think they've almost entirely given up on door to door in the United States. Next one. Okay, well, she might be able to convert me to the nunnery. That's who's that? That famous. Okay, but I mean, but there's the American Catholicism is suffered, dropped from the number of parishes has dropped. The number of Catholic elementary schools has dropped by 36%. Secondary schools have dropped by 11%. The baptisms and first communions are way down. So the Catholic Church has suffered quite a bit.
Catholic marriages.
Next one.
Yes.
Each successive generation from the boomers to millennials was raised in a slightly less religious household. And sociologists say, because more and more generations are coming up out of non-religious households, we're going to see the curves continue to drop off. Next one. The social consequences. There's both good and bad. Religious obsolescence is likely to continue to increase Americans' feeling of isolation and loneliness. Social capital and trust are likely to decrease, probably more mental problems. So, okay, final, let's open the discussion. There's a cartoon. If your religion makes you hate someone, you need a new religion. And that book there is well worth reading. It's a long book. The Untold Story of the Reverend Jim Jones. And remember that murder suicide in Ghana killed almost 1,000 people. 1,000, that was no small number.
Is that the Kool-Aid?
That's where the phrase, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah. Okay, we've thrown some controversial and interesting data out there. Let's get some comments from the peanut gallery here.
Comment, I was at a dinner party last night with young collegians. And
Louder, Sharon.
they were talking about the Mormonism and the Mormon on Dancing with the Stars and, of the Mormon wives and stuff, and they're just discrediting all of Mormonism. And this was college age kids. I thought it was pretty interesting that they were interested in it. So maybe that's even more declining.
Very good. There's a microphone on each side, left and right side of the room. Go ahead and grab those, please. Thank you, Mason, and pass them to whoever has their hand up. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hello. So I just wanted to share just a quick observation. My daughter and son-in-law are both 31. Both raised in the church. Through college, my daughter was very strong in her beliefs. She majored in film, and then when she got into the real world as a filmmaker here in Denver, it really started to make her question the teachings of the church. And mainly, this would be like a conservative church, by the way. Mainly it was because of the churches, how they treat the gay and lesbian LGBTQ community, because so many folks in her industry are gay or whatever.
Yeah.
And she couldn't believe that. They were like really good friends of hers. They were kind, loving, and she just said, Christianity is not for me, the way they're being treated by Christians or fundamental Christians. So that was what she told me.
Okay. Well, what a shame that people leave for that reason. They don't know there are progressive churches they could find that support gay people.
Yes, and I have shared with her about St. Andrew, and she thinks it's wonderful, but she's gone on. She's moved on.
Okay.
I think we should do more publicity, more marketing. Let people know what we do. Yeah. Who's next? More comments, questions?
Go ahead.
Pass the microphone
Christine.
forward to Christine, please. Thank you.
Isn't it interesting, though, that with this decline, we seem to have this rise in Christian nationalism that has a very powerful position in our government right now? I mean, Project 2025, Russell Vogt, and these guys are really, I think, directing a lot of what's going on. So while the churches, well, to me, I see it as more of a political movement that's shrouded in religion rather than a religious movement. It's for political power, but that disconnect. Churches are going down, but yet this particular group seems to have gained a lot of political power right now.
Yeah, there's no denying it. And it's also interesting in terms of what pieces or parts of the Christian church have the biggest voice forward. It's the majority doesn't always dominate the news. The news often gets dominated by extremism and bad examples.
Yeah. A couple months ago, I shared with you that Rev Mark said that the future of growth in the Christian community is the non-denominational churches. That's where people are really flocking to, that have names like the Crosswords Church or Journey Church, that are
Right.
young, non-denominational, more conservative focus. Yeah. Go ahead, Norley.
I'd like to point out that I think our church is making a concerted effort to bring in folks that are younger than baby boomers, especially Gen X, millennials, especially for the 10:30 service. And I know from comments I've heard from Rev Mark that this is really important for us. And I realize, yeah, all of us are, the ones that are in decline, and we need to build that community.
Right.
you know, young people are getting a job, they're trying to, you know, have an income, maybe get married. And I think our church needs to understand, how can we really help the young people? Like, what do they need? Do they need help in finding a job? Do they, you know, so that the church then becomes more of a reality to them. Now, the older people like that, what you showed, as we get older, we start thinking we're gonna see our maker. So now we want to go to church more. You know, I mean, let's be real. And so I think to meet the needs of the young people, to get them to come, is how can we help them with their reality of the day? And their needs.
Excellent. Back here.
Just a quick anecdote about youth sports. As we speak, I have a grandson who's playing hockey up in Arvada, and we were going to be there,
Oh,
to tell you the truth. But then because of internal politics of family, we're here.
okay.
But we're always going to be here singing in the choir.
Okay, let's get Frank, and then jump over to Jim after Frank.
Thank you. Do we think that the schisms that we're watching in the Anglican Church and the Methodist Church, how they are currently impacting the decline of church going? Any thoughts? Thanks.
Within the Methodist.
Do you mean the Methodist Church?
Both the Methodist Church and the Anglican Church, Episcopalian / Church of England are going through it, and we watched the Presbyterians go through it about, I think, 40 years ago.
No, they're still going through it right now.
Right, we're still here, but
Presbyterian.
Is that really
Lutheran
driving
split.
people away from church in general? Or is that just splitting liberals from
Yes.
conservatives?
That.
I wonder about that. Gene, pass the microphone forward, please.
I can speak loud enough.
It's coming, Gene.
At the same time, with the menu, you're alluding to the fact, the menu is enlarged to such an extent, people have a lot to choose from. In the paper this week, there is rapid, robust growth in the Orthodox Church, particularly among men, young men. And these are people leading mainline communities as well as evangelical communities. So you can Zoom spiritual groups here in Denver if you're into contemplation and looking for spirituality. You can also have podcasters that can meet some of your needs. So you have the post-COVID with Zooming, which we're doing here at St. Andrews. We have friends who Zoom every Sunday to the National Cathedral because they prefer to attend churches back there. So people have quite a menu here. So whereas maybe some of the organizational features have declined, there's a lot of creativity going on right now. The Soul Boom book that Jerry led us through recently alludes to that as well.
Okay. The author does say he feels like a lot of the clergy shouldn't blame themselves too much in terms of so better programs, better, and all these things will help, but they're not likely to be enough to overcome this cultural shift that's been so powerful.
Spiritual needs met one way or the other.
Right.
There is
Right.
a hunger, there is a hunger.
Good point.
Market.
Donuts won't do it. Patty, go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking about what you're saying about all the options of young people and finding ways to meet their needs spiritually. And when they look at the extreme conservative or the culture wars and how the politics, they've aligned the anti-gay, anti-abortion, a whole bunch of things. And then the whole coalition of people trying to find the opposite of that. I don't like speaking in these things. I'm looking at loose coalitions with a whole bunch of other progressive groups. I was at a youth climate summit on Thursday, and there were indigenous, a whole lot of indigenous groups there, and immigrant groups. and they are progressive politically, but they're willing to work together across those religious differences in order to make a political impact.
Ecumenical.
Yes, real ecumenical, and it goes way beyond Christian. It goes into the Buddhist community, it goes into indigenous, it goes into many different religious groups. And I'm wondering how many young people are, or what is the political coalition that of people from a wide variety of religious backgrounds who are willing to work together in order to make a political impact again, especially on science and climate and gender and all those different issues that the culture wars have discouraged kids from being involved with church at all, but they're willing to be in these other kind of coalitions. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Just to dovetail on what you're saying, I don't have any studies before me, I haven't read a book about it. But I suspect that there is a rising tide of people who consider themselves spiritual.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And not necessarily religious.
The spiritual, but not religious.
Yes, I think that's a rising tide.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Norley.
If I could just tie back into what Jean was saying. And all the options, there are 2,000 people who watch our service
3,000.
each week. Is it 3,000 now?
That's what I heard.
Between 2,000 and 3,000?
It's huge.
I'd like to tag on to a comment you made where people will go where their needs are met. And I think it's important to look at what needs are out there. And I'm just going to give a little ray of hope in one little piece. I was not raised in a church. I mean, we were Creasters, and I started singing. Wow. And I started singing when I was 30, and I needed a place to do that. And really, music is really declining as resources are taken away from schools and places. So music is a little ray of hope, because as long as a church provides a good music program and an opportunity to worship through music, you'll attract those people. So I know choirs have always been a church within a church, but it has kept me going to church every Sunday for 40 years. And it's because we practice and then we have to go do it. I'm sure, I am absolutely certain if I were not a choir member, I'd go 3 or 4 times a year. So if we can identify some of these entry points and just the need for community, and we can create community in a variety of different interest areas. So music is mine, but there are all kinds of others, whether it's making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or not. So those are the rays of hope. And as long as we keep in mind, are we meeting people's needs? I think there's great hope.
I have to put in a plug for contemporary issues. And see if that's I think this class and its ability to encompass a wide range of modern subjects. I joked with Alice this week. I said, I feel like we've got the next couple lessons, we've got some, stuff that's relevant to our world and our lives. As opposed to saying, well, I would sure hate to be talking this morning on broccoli. That's from a movie, remember? The Ladies in England, Calendar Girls, yeah. Or just Ecclesiastes 2:4, or just and it just bores people to tears. You need to talk about things that are often controversial, that aren't fully decided. And I think this class meets that need of touching on some of these more sensitive subjects.
We've got 5 minutes left. I want to give our Zoomers a chance to say something. If you'd like to comment or question, just go ahead. Don't think you're interrupting us. If not, then we're going to Rachel. Rachel, go ahead.
To tag, something.
No, I
To tag on with what you said, I would say that's how I became involved in the church. My friends were already here and they said, oh, there's this cool class. And it talks about all these contemporary issues. And I'm sitting here going, I've got some political issues with the way the world works right now. And they're like, yeah, and it talks about that. And I'm like, okay, so I can come and there are people who think like me. And then the church became more relevant to me.
Oh, thank you.
So I think you're right.
Okay, good.
Great,
Good.
thanks.
Yeah, now,
Carol.
right now, I think this church is doing a good job to meet the needs of the desire for community. If you're a member of the human race at all, your need for community, the need is very basic.
Yeah.
I mean, and once you supply and meet that need, then people will keep coming.
It's a place to belong.
Yes, but within, I mean, you can just look through the history of mankind. Community, meeting, you don't exist alone.
And a place to work together
Yes.
and in
sharing-
community.
Well, you're
Exactly.
sharing feelings,
Yeah.
you're sharing problems, you're sharing triumphs.
And you're sharing a way to work towards solving some of those problems,
Yes.
at least in your own community.
Well,
Very good.
yes, and the feedback
Yeah.
that you get from, well, look, I have this issue, and the other person, well, this is how I meant that, and this is what I did, and it worked for me. That kind of thing.
Any comments, Peter?
We're about out of time. Any final thoughts?
What?
Yes.
I apologize, Ron, for being
Sure,
late
no,
today.
no.
I had a meeting. I'll just speak. Nobody's ever accused me of speaking quietly, so I'll speak loudly.
Good.
I'm so glad that Ron mentioned, the issue with Jim Jones in Guyana as a critical historical event that we're all aware of from years ago. By coincidence, I was working in Guyana shortly after that tragedy on a water resource assessment project. And so I met a guy who'd been contacted by Jim Jones trying to suck him in to that sad cult where all the people died of Kool-Aid, shall we say, poison, Kool-Aid, Gatorade, whatever it was. And I was so pleased to be able to talk to this young man. I can remember his name, Patrick. Guyanese young man, very nice young man named Patrick, who hadn't been sucked in to that cult. One of the world's most deadly and ominous cults, as we all remember. That touched me, that he stood up for what he believed and was not sucked in.
Wow.
A fork in the road.
Yeah.
Fork in the road.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ron, for mentioning that.
Okay,
One little thought too, we've been talking about the church declining in America and Europe, but in Africa, it's growing. Is that right,
Yes.
Peter? Yeah, yeah, and
Particularly on the more conservative side.
on the more conservative side. So there are areas where church attendance and religion is growing. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ron, for sharing. Go ahead. Sure.
I like to tell people I go to Bible study, but then they kind of, what? I go to sisters, I go to something else. It's so kids don't hear Bible. They hear the community. So I think that's important that we change the name of some of these things, even though we evolve into the Bible. We don't come out and say, come to see my Bible.
A lot of Baptist churches have done that. They've changed their title from Baptist to Community Church.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes a difference in our presentation.
Ron, thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Right. See you next week. Bye-bye.
That's